Ryan's Office Revenge.
I spent 16 years keeping that plant from burning down. Not metaphorically, literally. And the week they handed my badge to a 31-year-old who thought scotta was a type of pasta, I just smiled, packed my tools, and let the clock run. My name's Ray Calloway. I'm 57, been working industrial control systems since I got out of the Army. What I'm about to tell you happened last year at Apex Manufacturing in Oklahoma City. Place makes precision parts for fighter jets and helicopters. When our stuff breaks, million-dollar aircraft don't fly. When our safety systems fail, people die. The moment I knew everything was about to collapse, I was troubleshooting Control Panel 7. 3 days of intermittent alarms, pressure spikes every 47 minutes like clockwork. I had my multimeter deep in the analog input module when I heard footsteps on the factory floor. Heavy shuffle I recognized as Harold Martinez, our CEO, followed by lighter steps, designer shoes that had never seen hydraulic fluid or metal, shavings. So this is where the magic happens. The voice was too confident for someone who'd never reset a tripped breaker at 2 a.m. Looks pretty outdated. Couldn't we just move all this to cloud monitoring? I didn't look up. Cloud monitoring. Right. Like asking if we could move a blast furnace to the internet. I finished checking voltage across the terminals before sliding out from behind the panel. That's when I got my first look at Derek Voss. Early 30s, MBA haircut, shirt still pressed at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Harold's son-in-law, though the rumor mill had been grinding on that for weeks. Ray, Harold cleared his throat. Meet Derek. He's taking on expanded responsibilities. Derek stuck out his hand like we were at some networking mixer. Heard you're the guy who keeps everything from exploding. I wiped hydraulic fluid off my palm before shaking. Something like that. Here's what Derek didn't get. What none of the office people got. This wasn't just about keeping machines running smooth. Apex made components for Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Boeing defense contracts. When our tolerances slip by thousandths of an inch, aircraft parts get scrapped. When control systems hiccup, $2 million worth of titanium becomes expensive junk. When safety protocols get bypassed, people wind up in burn units. I learned that lesson back in 2009. Pressure vessel blew on line 3 because some hotshot supervisor disabled a safety interlock to hit a deadline. 2 of my guys spent a month in the hospital. 3rd-degree burns on their arms and faces. I'm the one who had to write the incident report. Explain to OSHA investigators how cutting corners nearly killed good people. Ever since then, I built redundancy into everything. Triple-checked every safety circuit. Made sure every alarm meant something real. Harold used to appreciate that kind of thinking. Back when Apex was small enough that he'd walk the floor every morning, black coffee in a dented thermos, asking about throughput and maintenance schedules. We built the current SCADA system together, not with consultants and project managers, but late nights and careful planning. When the main PLC crashed Christmas week 2012, I worked 60 hours straight rebuilding the program while Harold brought me gas station sandwiches and burnt coffee. We really appreciate everything, he'd say, watching me trace wire diagrams at 4 a.m. This place runs because of guys like you. But that was before Derek started showing up to production meetings, before Harold got interested in modernizing operations and leveraging fresh perspectives, before my equipment requests started getting shelved while the marketing budget doubled. The warning signs had been flashing for months. Fewer invitations to strategy sessions, questions about whether my maintenance protocols were really necessary, gradual shift from asking my opinion to just informing me about decisions already made. I kept quiet and did my job, kept the lines running, safety systems active, quality specs tight. Because when you're responsible for stuff that keeps aircraft in the sky, you don't mess around with office politics. The conversation that ended everything happened Tuesday morning in Harold's office, called in to discuss organizational restructuring. His words came out casual, like rearranging office furniture. We're shifting some responsibilities, Harold said, avoiding eye contact. Derek's taking point on operations oversight. Technical side. You'll handle compliance documentation. Less hands-on work, more strategic oversight. I kept my voice level. You're benching me. Harold gave that uncomfortable laugh older guys do when they know they're screwing you but want it to sound like a favor. It's just natural evolution. You've put in your time. Derek's got vision for where we're headed. Vision. This from a kid who asked me last week if PLC stood for Programmable Logic Computer. Derek understands our control architecture. He learns fast. You'll train him, of course. And there it was. The real plan. Strip away my access, stick me behind a desk, and when Derek inevitably broke something critical, they'd say I was the one who trained him. I signed off. I was responsible for whatever went sideways, but I wasn't sticking around to be anybody's fall guy. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of bourbon and my contract file. 16 years of amendments, raises, benefit updates. Most people sign once and forget about it. I read every word. Always have. Buried on page 23 of my 2009 revision was Clause 11.7b, written after the pressure vessel incident, when Harold wanted to make sure I'd never leave. Single sentence that seemed mostly symbolic back then. Involuntary reassignment to non-equivalent technical role activates accelerated compensation provisions with full severance calculation. In 2009, my deferred comp was mostly theoretical. Stock options in a small manufacturing outfit, performance, bonuses tied to safety metrics. But 16 years of steady growth, no major accidents, consistent defense contracts had compounded those numbers into something real. $980,000 in accelerated stock vesting, deferred compensation, and contractual severance, all triggered by moving me away from technical oversight. More than the money, though, were the compliance implications. My signature was required on all OSHA documentation. My certification was listed on 3 DoD contracts worth $12 million annually. Moving me to compliance documentation sounded harmless to HR, but legally it meant I was no longer the designated safety officer, which meant those defense contracts would need complete recertification. I spent the next 2 days documenting everything. Not the sanitized procedures that went into official manuals, but the real stuff. The workarounds that kept line 2 from jamming every third Tuesday. The pressure readings that meant you had exactly 47 minutes before the hydraulic pump started cavitating. The specific sequence for restarting Control Panel 5 after a power hiccup that wasn't written down anywhere except in my head. 16 years of tribal knowledge, the kind of stuff that keeps a manufacturing plant running when Murphy's Law decides to pay a visit. Thursday morning, I walked into Harold's office and handed him my resignation letter. Clean, simple, 1 page. No drama, no speeches about loyalty or respect, just facts. Effective immediately, I'm resigning my position and activating Clause 11.7b due to involuntary reassignment to a non-equivalent technical role. Harold read it twice before looking up. His face had gone pale. What exactly does this mean, Ray? Means you owe me $980,000. And it means your DoD contracts need new safety certification. I watched him reach for his phone, probably calling legal. Derek walked in as I was emptying my toolbox. 20 pounds of Klein tools, fluke meters, spare fuses, cable ties, everything I'd need if I got called to fix something that actually mattered. So you're really leaving? Derek asked, holding an iPad like it was going to teach him 2 decades of experience. I closed the box and looked at him. Still pressed shirt, still clean hands, still that expression like he was doing me a favor by existing. Good luck with the control systems. Harold says you're supposed to train me first. I picked up my toolbox. Harold says a lot of things. The first call came at 11:30 a.m. Some lawyer from Apex asking if we could discuss the contract language. By noon, they'd tried 3 more times. Harold left a rambling voicemail around 2 p.m. about working something out and finding middle ground. I didn't return the calls. Instead, I called Rachel Adams. Sharp attorney I'd used during my divorce 5 years back. Woman could read a contract faster than most people read the sports page. I scanned my employment file and emailed it over. Her response came back in 6 minutes. They're screwed. Contract's bulletproof. They'll pay within 30 days or face triple damages. That's when the countdown started. Day 1, nothing. Radio silence from Apex. Figured they were still trying to find wiggle room in the contract language. Day 2, 10:12 a.m. General Dynamics sent a letter. Not to Apex management, but copied to me personally since I was listed as primary safety officer. Please confirm technical continuity for Project Falcon before proceeding with next delivery schedule. That was language I'd helped write 3 years ago. Fancy way of saying, is the guy who signed off on our safety protocols still there, or do we need to halt production? I forwarded the letter to Rachel with a note. It's starting. Day 3. Lockheed Martin joined the party. Similar letter, more direct language. Safety certification review required pending personnel changes. Translation. Show us your new guy's credentials or we're putting this contract on hold. Derek lasted exactly 4 hours trying to respond to those letters. Around 2 p.m., Harold's assistant called asking if I could clarify some technical specifications for Derek. I let it ring. Day 4. The third defense contractor didn't bother with letters. Boeing's procurement office just canceled their next order. $800,000 worth of precision components, gone. No explanation needed when the safety officer disappears and the replacement doesn't know OSHA from SCADA. That evening, Derek showed up at my apartment complex. Watched him through the window, standing by the call box like he was selling insurance. Phone in one hand, some kind of folder in the other. He buzzed 3 times, waited, buzzed again. My phone lit up. Unknown number, Oklahoma City area code. I let it go to voicemail. His message was 43 seconds of stammering about miscommunications and getting on the same page. Voice cracked twice. Kid was learning the difference between authority and competence real quick. Day 5. Harold called, blocked number, but I recognized his voice. On the voicemail, 37 seconds of the most careful language I'd ever heard from him, talking like someone had warned him every word might end up in court. Ray, look, I think there's been some misunderstanding here. We never meant for things to go sideways like this. Maybe the transition could have been handled better. If there's something reasonable we can work out, give me a call. No apology, no admission they'd screwed up, just misunderstanding and reasonable, like I was supposed to negotiate my way back to cleaning up their mess. Rachel's next letter didn't mention Harold's voicemail, but it didn't need to. Just restated the 30-day deadline with a reminder about triple damages for non-compliance. Clock was ticking loud enough to hear in the next county. Day 6. Outside consultant arrived. Some outfit from Dallas charging $150,000 for 6 months to do what they'd been paying me $78,000 a year to handle. Heard about it through Tommy Rodriguez, kid who ran maintenance on second shift. Good guy. Kept his mouth shut mostly, but he was smart enough to see the writing on the wall. New guy doesn't know a PLC from a PC, Tommy texted me. Consultant's doing all the real work. Derek just nods and pretends to understand. Day 7. First real equipment failure. Nothing dangerous, just line 3's conveyor motor throwing fault codes every few hours. Simple fix if you knew the trick with the variable frequency drive settings. Should have taken 20 minutes. Took them 4 hours and $3,000 in unnecessary parts. Day 8. General Dynamics made it official. Contract suspended pending safety recertification. Not canceled, just frozen until they could verify that whoever replaced me actually knew what they were doing. Rachel called that afternoon. They're panicking. 3 separate lawyers have contacted me today asking about alternative arrangements. What kind of alternatives? Paying you consulting fees to train the replacement, delayed implementation of the role. Change. Part-time advisory position. They're throwing everything at the wall. What did you tell them? That my client has no interest in renegotiating. Contract's clear, clock's still running. Day 9. The dam broke. Lockheed Martin didn't just suspend their contract, they terminated it completely. $4.2 million in annual revenue, gone with a single email marked contract breach, safety compliance failure. Harold called an emergency all-hands meeting that afternoon. Watched the live stream from my kitchen table while eating a sandwich. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 9 days. Kept tugging at his collar, stumbling over words about temporary setbacks and market adjustments. Derek stood behind him looking green around the gills. Kid probably just realized that playing CEO wasn't like his MBA case studies. Real consequences, real money, real people's jobs on the line. We're confident we'll resolve these compliance issues quickly, Harold said to a room full of worried faces. Our new operations director has extensive experience in process optimization. Process optimization. That was their spin on Derek's marketing degree and 6 months at a consulting firm. Tommy texted me during the meeting. Half the floor crew asking if they should update their resumes. Derek tried to give a pep talk about pivoting to new opportunities. Nobody bought it. Day 10. Payment day. Rachel had been clear about this. 30 days from my resignation, they either paid in full or faced triple damages under the contract's penalty clause. The wire transfer hit my account at 3:47 p.m. $980,000 exactly as specified. No negotiation, no partial payments, no creative accounting. Just the full amount, transferred like they were paying a utility bill. I didn't celebrate, didn't call anyone or post anything online, just screenshot the bank statement and filed it with my other documents. That same afternoon, I started making calls. First call, Danny Morrison at Industrial Control. Solutions down in Dallas, guy I'd worked with on a few projects over the years. Solid reputation, understood the difference between quick fixes and proper engineering. Ray, heard you left Apex. They treating you right on the way out? Can't complain. Listen, you still looking for senior guys? I'm thinking about going independent. Independent? Hell, Ray, with your background you could write your own ticket. Defense contractors are screaming for experienced safety engineers. Most of these young guys know software, but they don't understand industrial processes. That's what I figured. Send me whatever RFPs you can't handle. I'll split the referral fee with you. Deal. Give me 2 weeks. I'll have 3 projects for you to look at. Second call. My daughter Madison at Oklahoma State. Junior year mechanical engineering, smart as hell, better work ethic than her old man. Dad, how's the new job situation? Still figuring it out? How's school? Good. Expensive, but good. You sure you don't need me to take out more loans? I know things have been tight since the divorce. I looked at my bank balance. Nearly $1 million sitting there earning interest. Don't worry about the money, kiddo. Focus on your studies. Speaking of which, you interested in a summer internship? Might be starting a consulting business. Really? Dad, that's amazing. What kind of consulting? Industrial automation, safety systems, the boring stuff that keeps factories from exploding, she laughed. Boring to you, maybe. I'd love to learn that side of things. All we get in school is theory. Theory's important, but somebody's got to know how to make it work in the real world. Third call, Tommy Rodriguez. Kid deserved better than waiting for Apex to collapse around him. Ray? Man, it's crazy here. Derek's been in Harold's office all day. Rumor is they're talking layoffs. You looking for a change, Tommy? Depends. You got something in mind? Maybe. How'd you feel about working for yourself instead of some corporate outfit? Doing what? Same stuff you're doing now, just for people who actually appreciate it. I'm starting a consulting firm. Need someone who understands industrial maintenance and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Long pause. You serious? Dead serious. Won't be easy at first. Long hours, travel, dealing with different systems every week. But you'd learn more in 6 months than you would in 5 years at Apex. When do we start? That's how Callaway Industrial Consulting was born. Not with a business plan or investor meetings or a fancy office. Just a phone call to a kid who wanted to actually fix things instead of managing them. 2 weeks later, Danny Morrison made good on his promise. 3 projects, all within driving distance, all needing the kind of work I'd been doing for 16 years. Safety audits for a chemical plant in Tulsa. Control system upgrade for a steel mill in Arkansas. Emergency troubleshooting for a food processing facility outside Kansas City. The Kansas City job came first. Conveyor system failure that had shut down their packaging line for 3 days. Management was panicking because they had a major contract delivery due in a week. Took me 4 hours to find the problem. Sensor calibration drift that was throwing false signals to the PLC. Simple fix once you knew where to look, but you had to understand how the whole system integrated. Replaced a $30 sensor and adjusted the logic parameters. Plant was back online by midnight. Saved them $50,000 in penalty fees for late delivery. The plant manager, guy named Steve Patterson, walked me to my truck afterward. Where'd you learn to troubleshoot like that? 16 years of fixing other people's mistakes. You got a card? We could use someone like you on retainer. I handed him one of the business cards I'd printed at FedEx office. Simple design, just the basics. Callaway Industrial Consulting. Ray Callaway, P.E., Industrial Automation and Safety Systems. Professional. Engineer license? Steve asked, reading the card. Got it through the Army, kept it current ever since. Not many people bother with the PE anymore, but it opens doors with government contracts. Army, huh? What unit? Signal Corps. Maintained communication systems for forward operating bases. Different equipment, same principles. Everything's got to work when lives depend on it. Steve nodded. Yeah, I can see that. You military guys understand mission critical better than the business school crowd. 2 days later, Steve called with another job. Different plant, same company. Word was spreading. By the end of my first month, I had more work than I could handle alone. Time to make that call to Tommy. Tommy quit Apex on a Friday, walked into Harold's office, handed in his badge, and told them he was starting his own career. No 2 weeks notice, no transition period, just done. They ask why you're leaving? I asked him over coffee that weekend. Derek tried to give me some speech about loyalty and company values. I told him I was being loyal to people who actually know what they're doing. We started small. Rented a storage unit for equipment, used my truck for service calls, worked out of coffee shops when we needed to write reports. Not glamorous, but it worked. Our first big break came 6 weeks later. Plant manager in Wichita called, desperate. Their main production line had been down for 4 days. 3 different consulting firms had tried to fix it. Nobody could figure out what was wrong. We're bleeding $40,000 a day in lost production, the guy said. Plant's running at 30% capacity. Corporate's talking about shutting us down if we can't get this sorted. Tommy and I drove up that afternoon. Took us 20 minutes to spot the problem. Somebody had installed a software update without checking the hardware compatibility. New code was trying to communicate with old servo drives using a protocol that didn't exist anymore. How'd you figure that out so fast? The plant manager asked after we got everything running again. Experience, I said. Seen this exact problem probably 15 times over the years. Most people focus on the mechanical side when something breaks. They don't think about software talking to hardware. That job led to 3 more at the same company. Then their parent corporation started sending us work at other facilities. Word spreads fast in manufacturing when you can actually solve problems instead of just documenting them. By month 4, we had steady work booked 6 weeks out. Tommy was handling the routine maintenance contracts while I focused on complex troubleshooting and safety audits. We hired our first subcontractor, an electrician named Pete, who understood industrial controls better than most engineers. That's when Harold called. I was replacing a faulty pressure sensor at a plant in Arkansas when my phone rang. Blocked number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Ray, it's Harold Martinez from Apex. I finished tightening the sensor fitting before answering. What can I do for you, Harold? Look, I know things ended badly between us. Maybe I could have handled the transition better. But we've got a situation here, and frankly, we need someone with your experience. What kind of situation? Control system failure. Line 2's been down for a week. The consultant we hired can't figure out what's wrong. He paused. Derek's in over his head. I almost laughed. Line 2 was the system I'd rebuilt after the 2012 PLC crash. I knew every relay, every input, every line of ladder logic. What makes you think I'd be interested? We'll pay your consulting rate. Whatever you normally charge, this is business, not personal. My normal rate for emergency calls is $300 an hour, 4-hour minimum, plus expenses. Long pause. That's pretty steep, Ray. That's what competence costs, Harold. You taught me that. Another pause. Fine. When can you get here? I'll be there Tuesday morning. And Harold, I'll need Derek to stay out of my way while I work. Tuesday morning, I pulled into the Apex parking lot for the first time in 8 months. Same security guard at the gate, same faded paint on the loading docks, same broken light fixture in the east parking lot that nobody had bothered to fix. Tommy met me at the entrance. He'd been keeping tabs on the situation through guys who still worked there. It's bad, he said. They've had 4 different contractors look at Line 2, spent close to $80,000 on parts that didn't fix anything. Derek's been telling Harold they need to replace the whole control system. Replace it with what? Some cloud-based solution his MBA buddy recommended. Cost estimate came back at $2.3 million. I shook my head. For a system that was working fine when I left. Derek met us at the control room door. 8 months had not been kind to him. Looked like he'd lost weight, bags under his eyes, shirt wrinkled like he'd been sleeping at the office. Ray, thanks for coming. I know we've had our differences, but where's the problem documentation? He handed me a thick folder. Incident reports, part replacement logs, contractor assessments. I flipped through it while walking toward Control Panel 2. Says here you replaced the main processor module. The consultant thought it might be corrupted firmware. Did you back up the program first? Derek's face went blank. Back up. I looked at Tommy. He was trying not to smile. The program that runs this line, 16 years of logic modifications, safety interlocks. Did anyone save a copy before you wiped the processor? The consultant said the new firmware would be compatible with existing programs. I opened the control panel and connected my laptop, pulled up the diagnostic software and started checking the program logic. What I found was exactly what I expected. Generic factory default code. Nothing custom, nothing specific to our process, no safety interlocks. Good news. And bad news, I told Derek. Good news is your hardware's fine. Bad news is somebody erased 16 years of programming and replaced it with generic code that doesn't know how to run your process. Can you fix it? I can rebuild it. Take me about 6 hours if I work straight through. 6 hours? The consultant said it would take weeks to reprogram everything. The consultant doesn't have the backup files. I pulled out my laptop bag and retrieved a USB drive, one of dozens I'd made before leaving. Complete backup of every control system in the plant, updated through my last day of employment. Derek stared at the drive like it was made of gold. You kept backups? Always keep backups, kid. First rule of industrial controls. By 3 p.m., line 2 was running again. Full production, all safety systems active, quality control within spec. Derek stood there watching the displays like he couldn't believe it was actually working. How much do we owe you? He asked. 12 hours at $300, plus Tommy's time and expenses. Call it $4,500. Derek wrote the check without argument, hands shaking slightly. As we packed up our equipment, Harold appeared. Looked older than I remembered, more gray in his hair. Ray, I owe you an apology. And a conversation. You interested in coming back? Permanent position, your old role, significant raise. I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. Thanks, but I'm good where I'm at. Running your own shop? Building something that's actually mine. Outside in the parking lot, Tommy loaded the truck while I took one last look at the building. 16 years I'd spent keeping that place running. Now I was building something better. My phone buzzed. Text from Madison. Dad, just got an internship offer from Boeing. They want someone with industrial automation background. Know anyone who could give me references? I smiled and typed back. I might know a guy. Some people think revenge is about making the other guy hurt. Real revenge is simpler. It's proving what they threw away was worth more than they ever understood. I built those systems. Built them right, built them safe, built them to last. Now I'm building something better. Something that's mine. And every time my phone rings with another client who needs someone who actually knows how to fix things, I remember walking out of Harold's office with my head high. They thought they were replacing me. Turns out they just reminded me what I was worth. Your real worth isn't what they pay you. It's what it costs them when you're gone. Never burn bridges. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them call you back to fix what they broke.